Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Indie Hangout Podcast, episode number 3. I am Pneumatics. Before I get into who is with me tonight, I am Pneumatics. You may know me over on YouTube, or you can catch me over on Twitch with an extra X at the end. I'll stream over there sometimes, and right now I've been really focused on Final Fantasy content, and we'll see what else we get into after that. But also, as I was saying, I'm joined tonight by some awesome co-hosts of mine. Kronos, what's up, dude?
How's it going? OSOK Kronos here. Everybody just calls me Kronos. Stream on YouTube and Twitch. About to start a new game tomorrow night called Survival Machine. It's a zombie survival where you do a base builder at the same time, and looking to see how it goes. How about you, Maz?
What's going on, guys? Maz over at Maztech Gaming. Maztech Gaming on YouTube, Maztech_gaming on Twitch. Been playing around with some Dave the Diver. We were talking about it during one of our podcasts here, and it gave me the itch to start playing it again. So I'm streaming that currently alongside playing Fallout 4, alongside playing the new Oblivion remake, alongside playing Atom Falls. So I'm kind of giving myself a backlog live.
Yeah, man. You've been all over the place. And I've also seen Kronos. You've been playing some Repo. The new update came out. How is that, man?
So it's actually, the new update fits right into tonight. It's a beta version.
No way, really? I didn't know. I thought it was just a full release thing.
Nope, it's just a beta. It's an early access beta.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Is it like what's new, I guess? I was going to ask, what's new about it?
So they got rid of some of the glitches, which personally we're not a big fan of right now because, we think it's kind of fun using the infinite ammo glitch and stuff like that. But they got rid of those. They added in some new weapons, a new map. They buffed and nerfed some different features and bosses.
You gotta love patches.
It just hurts, man, because it's such a fun thing. It's just like Goat Simulator, like let the glitches be fun.
I was in your stream last night, and I heard you talking about the glitch, and then I saw the disappointment.
Yeah, man. I was in your streams too, and I was looking at that. I'm like, oh, okay. And I saw you were trying to, at first I saw you were trying to do the infinite ammo glitch. So did they patch that too?
Yeah, they patched that and the health glitch that we do.
Yeah, that sucks. But it's one of those, like, you kind of expected at some point, right?
Yeah, we knew it was coming, but it's just like, no, the fun.
Yeah, I've been playing some Final Fantasy, of course, but I did get on a new game. I went and bought it. It came out, I think, a couple days ago. It's called 2 Pixelia. It was created by an indie dev, and his studio's name is called Pixie Duo, and it was published by Critivo. I've never heard of Critivo before. I kind of looked into their games, and I didn't see anything that really kind of stood out of what I remember of playing. But this game looks pretty awesome. I was excited because it kind of looks a bit like Stardew, I guess. I hate to compare everything to Stardew, but it does, like the style and everything. But kind of like, think of it as Grand Theft Auto, old Grand Theft Auto, like PlayStation 1 era, mixed with The Sims. And you kind of get this game in 2D. It's very strange. Like, you wouldn't think it would work, but I was playing a bit of it last night. Was it last night or the night before? And I just barely got maybe an hour into it. I'm like, I'm digging it. It's probably another one of those games, maybe not for everyone, but I'm curious. I think maybe it's more curiosity right now that's guiding me to be like, okay, what else can I do in this game? What else can I do here? What can I do there? I think what really teases it is the beginning when they show you pretty much what you can do in the game. Like, they show these guys running around playing basketball. You have these guys working at a restaurant and all this kind of fun stuff. It's really interesting. I'm excited to get some more playtime out of it and really decide if I'm down with it or not. But yeah, that's what I've been up to.
Good deal.
Sounds like
Other than that, I think what the listeners really should do is join us over on Discord. If you guys didn't know, we have our own Discord. We'd love to have you over there to join in on the conversations. We have our polls over there. We have our question of the pod over there. And you can go and chat it up with us as well if you really want to. It'd be a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun over there, hanging out with everyone and talking with everyone and answering or reading off the answers to people's to the questions we post on there. And I'm sure we'll be putting even more stuff as the time goes on with like new game content coming out and such. So, but you'll be able to catch our episodes every Thursday. That'll be releasing over on Spotify, YouTube, and others in the future very soon. But guys, I think it would be a really good time to read off our poll because we usually do this at the end of the episode, but we had a really good one and we had a lot of votes. And I think it really pertains to the episode we have today. And I think we should go and read that off. So the poll that we went ahead and posted over on X and we went ahead and posted in our Discord went, what's the biggest factor that makes you trust an indie game's early access, Kickstarter, or demo? Before we get into the votes, do you guys want to divulge what you voted for?
Transparent developer communication. 100%.
Nice.
I agreed with him. Transparent devs. I mean, if they tell us straight up like what they're changing, how it's going to work, why they're doing it, I'm all for it. Like, just be honest.
Nice. I did not pick that. That's funny. I did not pick that. I picked a polished, bug-free demo or early access build. So the reason being is I guess I don't really stay on top of like the developer communication too often as much as I think I do. Like I'm more of that, like if it shows up on X or if I get an update, right, I'll check it out. Yeah. Maybe I just don't think about it that often, but like if I get a really good demo or early access build, I'm trusting that the game is in a good direction, that it might turn out to be really good when it's fully released. But our poll voters would beg to differ and they would side with you guys. The top pick was transparent developer communication. Examples, regular updates, dev logs, such and such. So we had a couple votes over on our X account. If you want to follow us over on X, you can follow us at Indie_Hangout. They picked 75% of voters believed that transparent devs were the way to go. And then with 25% vote going for a polished demo build. But what's really interesting is if you go over to the Indie Hangout Podcast Discord, we posted that poll over there as well. And 50% of the votes were for transparent developer communication. 40% of the votes were a polished bug-free demo or early access build. 10% of the votes were for a clear, realistic vision. And then there wasn't any other. Everyone picked what we put up there. I think, yeah, like I said, it's leaning towards that transparent developer communication. And I totally understand that. I totally get it. But you also see very close in votes compared to what I voted for as well. So why is it so important for a transparent developer?
I was surprised that you went with a polished bug-free demo and not transparent developer communication. I was wondering, I mean, you do devlogs all the time. You're always talking about devlogs, which is the best way to communicate with people that are accessing your game.
Yeah.
And so what made you decide a polished bug-free? Because I feel like a bug-free demo or early access is unrealistic, right? Because think about that for a second. This is like, it's early access because it's in alpha or it's in beta and it's in the middle of being developed at that point. And developers are using the demo for feedback or the early access for feedback and for debugging purposes and whatnot. So what made you decide to go with a polished bug-free demo? I know that you said it's a trust thing and whatnot, but isn't it going to get better over time anyway?
So the reason I was laughing about it so much is because I know what it seems like. It's like, wait a second, I'm a dev, but I'm not picking transparent developer.
Right.
I know it seems so bad, but it's like I do, I believe in both.
No, it doesn't seem bad. It doesn't seem bad. No, it's just I'm just curious because you're two minds here. If you think about this,
yeah.
You're a developer and you're a consumer. So I can tell that you're answering as a consumer here, not as a developer. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I find it very intriguing that you went with polished, bug-free demo or early access build over transparent developer communication. I was wondering what your thought process was behind that.
So I think what really gets behind me on that is when I play a game, when it's early access, it's a demo, I'm looking for certain things in a game, and I am way more forgiving than a lot of other people. Like you can give me a demo, and it's going to have a couple, it says bug free, but even if it had a couple bugs, I'm okay with that, especially with early access. But I feel like anytime I went and tried a demo and I was like, it's it's just not there. Something's missing, right? Or an early access that I'm like, maybe it'll get better. For some reason, some of these games don't seem to ever get some. I guess I've had a bad experience. Maybe that's why I've had some that just didn't get better for me. And I think looking back on it, it's like when I was answering this, and why, like I said, I find it so funny is it probably would be better just to have a transparent developer communication, because then you know exactly what state that demo is. You know exactly what state that early access is in. So the expectations are already there before you even jump into it. So yeah, maybe okay. Can I change my vote? I think I'm gonna change.
No, the poll's closed. I'm sorry.
Damn.
It's
Yeah.
final, no takebacks.
Damn.
No, of course you can change your vote. I was just curious about it. I mean, I'm not trying to put you on the spot or anything like that, but
No, I
was
love
like,
it, dude.
this is coming from a dev
Yeah.
saying this. And so I'm thinking to myself, and as a consumer, not as your buddy here, are you going to put out a bug-free, perfectly polished demo or early access when your game comes out? And so that's what I was kind of thinking when you were saying that. But I'm also realizing that you're not only just a developer, but you're a game enthusiast and consumer yourself. And so you
Right.
can answer two different ways, right?
Yeah, and I think also when thinking about this, right, I did think about my game in the terms of, unfortunately, it seems in the gaming industry with indie games, it's very unforgiving for indie devs when they release their game, and the most minor thing is missing. Whether it's early access or a demo or whatever, it just doesn't seem to matter. It's up there. And even if you put there, it's early access, and the dev could put in the notes, because they're supposed to say like where the game is at, where it's heading, when they expect full 1.0 release is supposed to be. Like, they could put all that out there, but you still have people that go in and they just expect the world. And when they go in and they see or they find these bugs or like unplayable states or it crashes, like they get frustrated and like you lose a potential player of your game, which is sad because that's what early access is for. But it just doesn't seem to be the case for, like, I would say, a majority of people over on Steam, which is unfortunate because, like, for instance, we're about to dig into early accesses, right? And that's the first segment we're going to be jumping into. There's a game called Fields of Mystria. Now, Fields of Mystria is currently in early access. This game is a farming game, just like Stardew Valley. It's really great. A lot of people have been loving it. But the reason people have been loving it and it's been getting so much hype is because of how polished it is in early access. Not because of the mechanics or how fun the gameplay is. That is obviously a good factor in that as well. But the main thing is people are like, I can't believe this is early access. This is such a good game. I can't wait for the next update because it's going to feel like a DLC. It's completely opposite of what it should be. Like, early access is meant for players to come in and expect early access, expect bugs, expect game breaking mechanics, and then give feedback on that to the developer to fix so that it's guiding the game in the right direction until full release, so that when it is released, people get what they expected, they get what they deserve. And in my personal opinion, I think it's a bit backwards right now when it comes to early access on Steam. I don't know how it is with the consoles like Xbox and PlayStation, but that's my personal opinion. That's my experience as well, and where I'm coming from with that.
That's a great response. And it's funny at the same time. I'm curious how many gamers are out there that don't realize exactly what early access is. Is it when I first started, when I first heard of early access before I got into streaming or anything like that, I was just a game consumer. I wasn't paying attention to everything like that. I'm curious to how many people are going to listen to this and be like, oh, that's what early access is designed for. Instead of just like, oh, I can get it early because it might be limited or whatnot. So I'll be curious to if anybody comments on what if they realize that or they're learning something here with what early access actually is.
Yeah, I think a common misconception a lot of people have too is the difference between early access and a beta.
Yeah.
Like, early access is like almost a full version of the game that you can play through. Whereas, like, a beta is just a small little section that you get to try it. You're stuck in that certain area.
Absolutely.
Because you're playing it right now, Maz, Grounded. That game released as early access, and you could access the whole backyard in the early access. Like, you could fight some of the bosses, and there was a ton you could do in just the early access. And then when the full game released, you had all this missions that you could go on and other areas of the backyard to explore. Whereas, well, back to how I always say Halo released their beta for Halo Infinite. You had 2 maps you could play on and 2 game modes, and that was it.
Yeah, and it's really cool as well because I've had, and you're absolutely right. You know, the early access is pretty much the full game, or most of the game, and it gets built out beyond that. But it's a full game at the time, right? And sometimes it's unrecognizable from, you know, its original, its new version, or its first version, or first candidate, if you will. But betas are the games that are kind of, normally they're free. Early access is generally not free. It's focusing on testing specific portions of the game or versions of the game. And as you find these bugs, and I was actually, I don't know if y'all remember, I was actually part of a beta test in December with a game called Tombstalkers, and you can get it on Steam for $9.99. And I was playing the final boss, and it glitched, and it wasn't working. So I talked to the developer, and the developer went ahead and updated it, came out with a new candidate for release, and there was a lot of work that went into that, finding specific bugs and trying to break the game. And I think with the early access, it's less likely. Would you agree that it's less likely that you're going to break a game than if you were playing beta?
I think it depends. I think it depends on what the developer states the game is at in early access. Because I do know, I think a developer can state that the game is technically an alpha or early beta as well over on early access. So
Yes.
like you're still getting a good full amount, but some early and maybe that's the problem, you know, with early access. Is answering your question by diving in further here, is that maybe Steam needs a new system for early access if like the devs is in an early state of the game, like alpha or beta, or getting to almost close to full release, and they just need that extra little feedback in order to figure out if their game has any game breaking things going on in it. So I do think that a lot of early access games can be very comparable to betas, because I did play back in the day. I went and played the beta. I got a key for it for Destiny before that game ever released, and that game was pretty amazing when I played the beta of it. Like, so good that, I mean, I don't even remember running across any bugs. And if you look back, and if I literally would have picked that out and put it today compared to some early access games, maybe people would say that's an early access game and not a beta. That's why I think that Steam could do well with organizing early access a little differently. But right now, I think all they have it is that the developer states where the game is at. And then potential players just have to read what the developer states the game is at and what to expect and what not to expect, or future possibilities that may happen with the game. And then more people would be on the same page, I think, of what to expect.
That's a good point. And I remember playing Destiny in beta as well, or early access, and I think it was very well done. You know, it was more polished than a lot of games in that stage. So I'll agree with you there.
Yeah, but at the same time too, I'll just say it, Bungie, you know, they were perfectionists with how they like to do stuff. So I mean, that was kind of why I picked Transparent Devs, is because even with a good beta, you know, if they focus on just that beta and make it really good, it could be locking in the full game itself though still.
Right.
Like, you know, like an overhyped beta, like, hey, we're going to make this beta perfect. And then it's like you buy the full game and it's like, well, there's so many bugs in this game. It's like, but this part that was from the beta is like perfect, you know?
Yeah.
So it could kind of like draw you in too if it's, you know, if they're not transparent about like, hey, you know, we refined this beta really well to make sure we ironed everything out.
Right. I mean, and being a transparent dev is super important, because especially with early access, right? Because why do indies use this early access feature that Steam has, or if they're going to do that or on any of the consoles, right? They're trying to provide funding to keep going, right? I mean, especially with some of these indie devs, they're doing this full time. This is their paycheck. This is how they keep things going. If the project's going a little bit longer than anticipated, it's a good way to have money to keep going. Or if they get money and to put into the project to make it even better, which I feel is a better option. And then also they use it so they can get a good community behind them. You think about it, Because if someone were to, let's say for like me, for instance, let's say I was just making my game, I didn't tell anyone about it, right? And now all of a sudden I just release it. Do you really think it's going to do that well? Or if I were to try and build a community, do these dev logs over on YouTube, do streams of it every now and then, throw out updates in my Discord and do an early access. Obviously, the game's going to be way more successful than if I just quote shadow dropped it, because it's just, that's not going to work. That doesn't, I mean, it could work maybe if it's one hell of a good game, but I still going to have problems PR wise when you didn't have that good community behind you in the first place to back you.
Hype is everything, especially as a new developer. You want to rely on that wish list. So the more you are marketing yourself and getting the name out there and generating hype ahead of time, it's going to be a much more smooth release versus, a Bethesda that can shadow drop and sell 4 million copies in 10 minutes. But that's where a lot of indie developers are versus AAA developers and publishers as well. I mean, it's apples and oranges for sure, which is why these games are considered indie.
Yeah.
That is very true.
They also do these early access so they can help. This is the whole point, so that people can play their game and figure out if there's any bugs, or if there's maybe not even bugs, just like gameplay features that the dev thought was going to work, but then finds out he's getting feedback saying, hey, no one uses this at all. Like maybe a tool or something. No one's using this at all. Why is it even there? Maybe it's not needed in the game. Like these little things that help out so much when they're in beta or getting close to releasing the game. But that also comes with a lot of issues as well. Like, well, before I get into that, like, games like I stated, Fields of Mystery is doing it very well. They're releasing patches for the game or updates to the game. It's an early access. They're releasing the patches as if they're DLCs, and the game is being very well received. Another game that did very well was Hades. That was a really popular game that came out, and that was an early access. That was developed by Supergiant Games. And another, you could say, like, wow, like, yeah, I can see why early access helped so much with that one. It did so much good, right? But then you got so many other problems. Like, there's obviously cons to that too, right? You're going to risk, as I stated in the beginning, the misconception with some people going to buy a game on early access without really reading the fine print, quote unquote, is they might expect something and they don't get it, and they're going to leave a nasty review for it because they feel that the game's too unfinished, when it could just be, it could go to, it's two ways here. The dev could absolutely just have not been transparent enough and been like, oh yeah, the game's good, and then someone plays it and like, no, it's not, negative review. Or the dev throws it all out there, hey, this is exactly where my game is at, this is what I'm leading to, blah blah blah. The player plays it, they don't read it, and they leave a negative review saying, oh, this game's trash, which is terrible. It's so bad, because the biggest thing for indie devs when they release their game are, well, before release, are wish lists and reviews. You could, like, negative reviews, it's so hard to come back from that. So hard.
Sad. And I think, when you think about it this way, it kind of goes back to what I was saying before. You run the risk when you release a beta, or in this particular case, we're talking specifically early access, to get these negative reviews. I don't think you can really leave negative reviews on a free beta and whatnot, but that goes back to what I was saying is, do people understand what early access really is? So having a transparency and open and honest communication from the dev to the consumer is wildly important, because if I am Joe Schmo gamer and I am just picking up a game, I don't know what early access is, I don't know what a full release is, there's the game, I bought it, and I'm playing it, and half the game disappears in the middle of doing whatever I'm doing in that game, and I leave a negative review. Well, if I am more up to snuff and I understand what an early access game is for, or I have that open and honest communication from the dev. I've got the dev logs. I've got updates. I've got patch notes, however you want to put it. I'm more likely to not leave that review because I'm educated on what that is. And hopefully the purpose of this podcast kind of helps people that are getting into games understand what that means as well. So we're not leaving negative reviews, because you're absolutely right. I mean, you have 10 people play it and 3 people leave a negative review, you're in trouble right off the bat.
Yeah, detrimental, dude.
And one thing I was thinking back to what you were saying by, provides funding to keep development going. It could also be one of the things too, like, if you release it in early access to get some funds going, it's like if you're building it to a certain tier and you're like, well, if we could just get the money to buy like this software or this, way to make the art better or something, like to get that little bit of extra money that you could put into like a better program or, better sounds. And then so when the actual game is able to release, you have this new and improved stuff that actually is nicer than what you originally released, which could be a bonus for people too.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. And I think, it's funny. We always go back to it that like indie devs, when they release a game, it's like that's their baby, man. That was their passion project. So I think a majority of indie devs out there, when they release something and they're getting in early access and they're getting money for it, the number one thing they're going to do is they're going to put that money towards their game because they want it to do well. They want to see it succeed. It's their baby. They wanted to grow up and send it off to college and get a good job. It's one of those. It's a big thing. So I think that you're 100% right on that, Kronos. You hit the nail on the head with that one, where it's a good way for them to put back into their game to make it that much better. I think the thing is, it's funny because I'm curious if that's why Repo, the devs of Repo, did that with their new update. Is like I said, that game is their baby. They don't want it to die. They are seeing so much good success out of it right now. So their first update is like, all right, and this is in my mind what I would be thinking if I released a game and it was doing very well like this, right? I'd be like, okay, this update needs to be a banger. It needs to do well. Otherwise, we could risk losing all the hype and then the game dies. So how can we get away with this in case the update's bad and pull it? Well, make it an early access kind of deal. Like make it a beta type. Like, all right, the update's out and you guys test it out and we're going to take feedback, and what you guys don't like, we're going to pull. What you like, we're going to keep. It's like the safe way of making sure their game doesn't die off because of people getting mad at the new update,
Back to what I was saying about like the infinite ammo glitch, it's like it could be one of the things like it's so much negative review about some of us don't use it, some of us do, just leave it in there. And it's like they could see it as like, hey, this is actually probably going to hurt us if we patch it. People are going to be like, well, I play it for this reason, and they're not going to keep playing it because it's like, well, the fun stuff's gone for me.
Right. Yeah.
Because I ain't gonna lie, it's been really fun just like running around with infinite ammo, just blasting these creatures back. It's made it longevity a lot more for us.
You know what they should do? And this is like off the top of my head, I'm thinking like if I was the dev and I'm hearing that feedback, right? I'm going, okay, the players want a way to have infinite ammo, just some kind of way. So instead of making it a glitch that you do right before a match, make it like some kind of upgrade. Make it a fun little Easter egg. You find this and all of a sudden you got infinite ammo. Like still somehow keep that bit of code that wasn't meant to be in the game somewhere and put it to use so that, yeah, it doesn't fit the narrative of being a glitch anymore, but it does fit the narrative of the people that love having that in the game.
Yeah, see, like all the items have what they call energy. Their guns have energy, the recharge drone, the feather drones, they all have energy. Do like a infinite energy mode to where you never run out. And like you could have literally two ways to play. You could have the traditional style or the, infinite ammo type things, and people would play both. You'll still have those people that want to play it a certain way, and you'll have those people that are like, well, I hate to say it, like kind of like me and Miles and us, where we're playing for fun. We're just running around blasting, having a good time.
How dare you put so much pressure on the dev, Kronos?
Hey,
Lofty expectations.
It's funny because it goes right along with, one of the cons is that a developer is going to have some pressure to deliver updates and manage community expectations. It's one of those big things. But, these guys they seem very smart. The devs seem really cool about it. I'm sure they're going to figure something out to make everyone happy, And on the other side of that, like for devs that can't figure it out, they risk burnout, man. Especially getting away from repo, just games in general with early access. They've been early access for a very long time. And it seems so like some of them like linger on for years in early access. And it's like all of a sudden you'll go to a game and it was an early access, and you're like, oh, how long has it been in early access for? 3 years, and there's been no update from the dev for 2? That's terrible. But it's like one of those, like the dev, like maybe they got overwhelmed by the pressures put onto them, and they were just like, you know what, I don't know what to do, I'm done, and they walk away, which is even worse. Like you should. That's so bad. It's like just pull your game at that point, you know?
So, prime example of that is Grounded, the game that Maz has been playing. We played it in early access when it first came out. And like we went back for like a couple months on end, and it was like early access, early access, early access. And they hadn't changed nothing, done anything. And like I think it was like a year later. So it was like a year and a half. And next thing you know, it was like releasing now in full version, Grounded. And I was like, that game just now releasing, you know, like you were saying, like it's.
Yeah, goes to that. Yeah, it's funny. I did vote for transparent dev, you guys. I don't know if I made a mistake, and
Yeah, you misclicked. Yeah.
yeah, I
It
misclicked.
happens, right?
Yeah, just so you know.
No, it's all good.
happens.
Like I said, the thing is, there's a reason why there's multiple answers, right? Because there really isn't a wrong answer, is there?
Right.
It's an opinion.
Yeah.
And so even if you're wrong, it's an opinion, right? And so there's no wrong answer. But I was just more curious what your thought process was. Well, I appreciate you answering that.
That's all good, dude. I just find it funny. Because everything is really just digging down into transparent dev is what really is a driver. And it's fun doing this too, because talking it out, it's like, okay, no, my thought process is more leaning towards this way instead of what I thought it was, you know? So
Right. And it's also like content creation as well. I mean, if you pay attention, I've got a bunch of people that say, don't pay attention to the numbers, don't pay attention to the numbers. And there's some numbers that you shouldn't pay attention to, like how many people are watching you concurrently and whatnot. But when you are creating content, like on YouTube or something like that, you have to pay attention to the numbers because you want to see what's working and what's not working.
Yeah.
And so that translates into game development as well. Because if you have an early access game out there and you're being transparent as a developer, you also need to be open-minded to take that feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. And the big difference right there is like maybe some things come up that you never thought of. And you bring your game a different direction based on what people are trying to do in your early access version. So maybe you decide, hey, I'm going to add this to my game. And it wasn't even part of your game in the first place. So lots of really good possibilities with that transparent type of access. Well, that transparent type of communication, rather.
yeah.
Pneumatics is going to be like the prime indie game releaser when this game is finally done after all these podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, he's educating and learning.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, he's learning everything right now. He's like, okay, wait a minute, hold on, this works, that don't, this works.
Here's the scary thing, Kronos. He's teaching himself.
Oh, you got me. You got me. My plan all along, which is as funny you bring this up, because I was thinking about this question in general is like, how do you, like, for any indie dev going into early access, like how do they keep that transparency with players while keeping the surprise of the game for full release? Like I struggle with this all the time. Like when I was first streaming my game, I was like, all right, I have a living GDD, a living document. Like it's not set in stone. It's going to always change. But there's a lot of things that I didn't want to, because people come into the stream and they're like, hey, what's your game about? Oh, okay. What about this? What about that? What about this? And it's like, how much do I give away? Because I want some of it to be a surprise. But on the other end, I want it to be interesting enough so that you stay around and become a member of the community and follow along with the game dev. And I do know off of watching a lot of other game devs on YouTube, they struggle with this too. Like I obviously, like, so for me, example, I think if it's an RPG, obviously the hardest thing to do is trying to tell what your game is about without giving it all away, right? Because
Sure.
it's an RPG.
Sure.
People are going to play it for the story. So what are your guys' opinions?
Completely agree with you on that. I mean, RPGs are story driven most of the time. 99 times out of 10, really. It's all the time. There are different types of nuances to RPGs. But at the same time, they're kind of all the same, right? You start out, you level up, you upgrade, you find equipment, but it's the story. So if you're developing and trying to keep things under wraps, as a developer, you could probably sidestep the story while you're streaming a development, your development and everything like that. But it's hard to not tip your hand just by showing it. But with like what you're doing with your game and whatnot, you're doing a lot of the last dev stream that you had done was more aesthetics, so you weren't really giving too much away. You were showing off some of the mechanics and accessibility that you had added to it without giving it away. So there are ways to kind of veil what you're doing, and not completely tip your hand. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I like how you spotted exactly what I did. So that's exactly what I did. Whenever I think about streaming my game and doing any kind of devlog, it's really a matter of, all right, how do I show off the mechanics in an interesting way that seems entertaining and grabs people's attention so that they might become backers of the game at some point in time, or at least players of the game at some point in time. So, and it's really just showing off. Whenever I have to do sprite art, I'm like, all right, I'm down with this. I can go ahead and it's not the most interesting sometimes. It's more me talking things out of what I'm thinking about. And I do try to let the community also give their input and be like, hey, why don't you try this? Okay, let me try. Oh, that was great. Yeah, I think this will work great in the game. Things like that. And if I'm not doing sprite art, then obviously, yeah, I'm going to be showing off. I think, yeah, you're right. The last one I did, I was showing off the little tool belt I had going on.
The flashlight.
And all that, just to kind of like get an idea, because I'm trying to get a feel for what people are thinking. Like, does this seem too much? Does this look good? Obviously I can only get so much off a stream, but yeah, I think that's a great way for devs to do that without, things like that without giving away the boat.
Not only that, but the thing is when you do, and they're becoming more and more prevalent. I mean, you see a lot more dev streams than you did even 2 years ago. And because that kind of goes back to like what we always talk about. It's like what sets indie developers apart from AAA devs that are part of these massive cold teams and whatnot. And so you're putting love into the game, right? So not only are you putting love into your game as a solo indie developer, but you're letting your community know you, the developer, as you do it. And that kind of, when the finished product comes out, that kind of has a little bit of a lasting, possibly even sentimental value to that follower, or the person that kind of sat there and said, hey, you know what? This game is awesome, and I watched this guy make this game. So it kind of adds a little bit to the charm of indie games.
And you could also consider that as like almost somewhat of a beta in a way. Like, if you're showing designs and how you're doing it, people could be like, hey, well, what if you try it this way? And then all of a sudden you try it and you're like, okay, hey, this actually looks pretty good. We might add this in or something. Mm-hmm. You get that real-time feedback right off the bat, like.
I think even better. So it's one of those things too. I love Easter eggs in games. Mm-hmm. I absolutely love it. And I'm already adding that kind of stuff to my game with things from like, even from you guys, you two, there'll be some kind of Easter egg in there. And probably from this podcast, there'll be an Easter egg about some of the community that comes to my streams. The last one on my last game dev stream, they were talking about the whoop butt stick. So it's so stupid. It's from a long time ago. It's a little inside joke. And they're like, oh, you need to add that to the game. I'm like, don't worry. It's going to be a little Easter egg at some point, I think adding that and being an early backer that way, and not a backer, but just like, yeah, I guess a part of a backer kind of in a way, like that's my way of giving back to them is I hear you and I'm appreciative of you sticking through with this with me and supporting me, and I'm going to do this in return,
Absolutely. So are you talking about like backers as in like crowdfunding?
Yeah. You want to segue right into that one?
How's that for a segue?
Yeah.
I'm going to call it a segue because that's how you spell it.
A segue. Yeah. I totally misspell it all the time.
You spell Segway? Way.
A
So
Segway. Wait, is that one of those things you get on the two-wheelers and you?
Yeah,
I
those
thought that was the thing people ride
$15,000
around
two-wheelers. Yeah. The Paul Blart Mobile? Absolutely.
Yeah,
Mall
yeah,
cop
man.
coming through.
So getting into, yeah, dude, backers for things like Kickstarter. Why would you do a Kickstarter?
I mean,
Because-
Oh, I'm sorry. No,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
no.
Go on. I thought you were asking.
No, I kind of was, and I mean, my thing is, obviously it's like another way of funding, right? But I'm curious. I've not thought about doing a Kickstarter, and
Why not?
I don't know. I guess I just never got. I don't understand it enough, I guess.
Let me explain it to you real quick.
Yes, please. Teach me your ways.
Pay attention, young Padawan, right?
I will be listening and learning too, because I don't even know the general consensus of what a Kickstarter is.
I'm a developer. To get what I need to get done, time, resources, buying more assets, different parts of the game, like art assets, paying my music person, paying my sound engineer, whatever. I have discovered I need $12,000. So what do we do with AAA games? I'll give you $12,000. You give me 80% of your game. Okay, so now you're selling out. But with Kickstarter, you can say, hey, look, here's a trailer of what I've been working on. This is what the game is supposed to be. I need X amount of dollars and I need X amount of time. In return, rather than giving you a piece of my game or a piece of my company, you're going to get a free first edition early access copy of this game. So you're giving back a free copy of that. And they did that with the Oculus, the MetaQuest, if you will. That's what they are now. But before it was MetaQuest, before it was the Quest or anything like that, it was the Oculus. And so Oculus came out, they did a Kickstarter, and whoever funded it with X amount of dollars would get a free Oculus. They would say, okay, here is the finished product. I'm going to send it off to the person that backed it. So that's kind of what that's designed to do, is give you the funding that you need without giving up any intellectual property. And if you set your funding amount for $12,000 and you make $18,000, hey, congratulations, you have an extra $6,000 to put into your budget. If you don't make that $12,000, well, then the fund goes away. So there's no harm, no foul. If I put in a $12,000 budget, I absolutely have to have it, okay? I have to have $12,000 to end my game, to finish my game, finish my game. Well, if I get $6,000, keep that, because I need 12. So it kind of keeps it honest. And Kickstarter's been around for years. It's very, very, it's legitimate. Familiar with Super Troopers, right?
Yeah.
Super Troopers 2, you familiar with that as well?
Yeah.
They did a Kickstarter.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Well, they kind of forced it, right? Because it was the first one was so successful. It kind of, at the beginning, it seemed a little bit too forced, like the humor and whatnot. But they did a Kickstarter for Super Troopers 2 because it's an independent film. It's an indie film, right? So they put in, I think it was like a $600,000 Kickstarter, and I think they raised something like $4 million in 24 hours. So they had a huge budget compared to what they needed. But they were able to, that's more pay for their actors, their crew. But if they had made $300,000, well, we have determined we need $600,000. I'm making the number up, by the way. We need $600,000 to do this. So if we don't hit that, then it goes away. Everybody gets their money back. No harm, no foul. But
Yeah.
to your point, there for you, New, if you need more assets, if you need to outsource anything, this gives you the flexibility to have that kind of cash flow, liquid assets, to get that stuff done, whether it be on Fiverr or independently contracting somebody or hiring a sound engineer or an animator or something like that, just to kind of increase your quality of life. They get some credits, they get their money, but it didn't come out of your pockets per se. It came out of, the crowdfunding. So not necessarily a bad way to go. Very, very little downside to it.
I like it. I think so. The one thing I have heard about Kickstarter is that, at least in the indie game dev scene, it's a great way to put your game out there, or even if you have a small build and you're getting into the nitty gritty, and to figure out if people actually want it based on how well it's doing on Kickstarter. Because you've heard there's plenty of games that go on Kickstarter that are indies, like Hollow Knight or Shovel Knight. Those games did amazing. Like, they'll put up some small number, like whatever, like $4,000, all of a sudden they come out with 50,000 backed. And like what you're saying with Super Troopers, it's like they probably didn't expect that. And it's like, so people want it. People want it. And what better indicator to say, yes, we are greenlit for this game no matter what now, you know?
Absolutely.
I think another thing is with Kickstarters, they got to be really clear with the people they are pitching their game to, because if they're not, that's the other factor. Like you can say like, yeah, if you have a great game idea, you have a little build, but if you're not pitching it correctly, or if you're not giving everything that needs to be said about it, then people are going to be confused and you're like, well, I'm not going to back this because I don't really know what I'm getting into.
Right. And the nice thing about Kickstarter is there is a very professional layout for each Kickstarter. So you, Pneumatics, you put a game trailer together. This is what I have so far. So you want to have something at least an alpha where you could put something together and show some gameplay. Maybe have a little bit of music in there. But just you kind of have a synopsis of what your game's about, what it's going to do when you expect to release it. Here's what it looks like so far. So people could be like, okay, I can get behind that. And just to give you guys the actual Kickstarter on that, Super Troopers 2, their original goal was $2 million. They raised over $4.6 million from over 54,000 backers. So that's what that was. So it's very, crowdfunding is, if you have the right audience, if you have the right type of enthusiasts and whatnot, it can't hurt to put your game or your project on Kickstarter if you need funding to finish the job. So there's nothing wrong with doing something like that. All it can really do for you is a huge shot in the arm, and you're not selling a piece of your soul, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, a piece of your soul being you're giving away proceeds from the game's sales.
Yeah, because you have to worry about that.
Sure.
So it's so weird, like getting into the scene and figuring out, like for me, what I need to do when I start getting close. It's like about giving me a heart attack thinking of all the things I'm going to be getting into when it comes to logistics of like, do I go with a publisher? Would I try a Kickstarter? Do I do early access? Like all these things, and then like how far into it you can actually get. Like going publisher wise, a lot of indie devs do go publisher because it's a good way of getting secured funding. But as you said, at the price of giving away something. Some publishers are really good, and actually most good amount of publishers are really good, and they don't ask for much. They'll be like, okay, we'll give you this amount of money. Give us your milestones. As long as you hit them, then when the game releases, we'll take this amount and then we're done. We're good. Or kind of like Shark Tank style, we'll take this percentage up until this amount sold, and then we'll take this percentage afterwards.
Yep. And a AAA company will eat you alive doing that.
Yeah. And so that's where you got to be careful as an indie dev. You're like looking for maybe the more common names out there, like Chucklefish and publishers like that, where you've heard of them before, and they've published really great games from devs, and you can be like, okay, I don't think I have to worry too much with this. Obviously, still read the fine print kind of deal, but because you don't want to be giving away the farm. Is like Thomas Brush, very well known game designer over on YouTube. He even states that through some of the games that he's made, there was one that he doesn't name the publisher because doesn't, no bad blood, but he states there, this one publisher that kind of like screwed him over. And then at the end of the day, I think he said he sold the IP for one of his games and then he was just done with it. And it's like, you got to worry about that. It's like if you get a bad publisher and then like, are you just going to say screw it and sell the IP away, where it could turn into a Minecraft situation,
Right, where it could have been. And by the way, Minecraft was also early access in 2009. Kind of tying that in.
Wow.
And it stayed in early access for a while.
Still in early access.
Is it really?
No, it's not. I'm just kidding.
Okay, I was going to say, like, I wouldn't surprise me because, I mean...
Right.
Not to deviate too much, but like other games that are early access, we'll go back to Kickstarter, but like other games that are early access for years, right? You guys have probably played and heard of some of these, like Subnautica.
Mm-hmm.
That game was in early access back in 2014. It released in 2018. 3 years in early access in total with how the months lined up, and very, very successful. DayZ, we talked about that game. Very successful. Fully released in December 2018. You could definitely tell it was it looks like an older game too. Project Zomboid. I played that game once ever, and it's still in early access, and I didn't really like it. I don't know why. There was something about it I just didn't care for. But Have you guys, yeah, you've probably played some of these, right?
Oh yeah, I got
Project Zomboid.
I've played Project Zomboid as well. I watched one of my friends stream that as well. It's pretty funny. It's a funny game.
Is it? I was gonna say I didn't really care for it. Did you guys like it?
It was all right. I mean, if I'm being honest, I mean, it was like, it goes back to what you said during our first podcast, way back last week, 2 weeks ago.
Way back when.
Yeah, way back 2 weeks ago. And you said, if I'm not thinking about it the next day, it's not for me. And
Yeah.
I never really thought about it until you just brought it up, if I'm
Oh, there
being
you go.
completely transparent. But I want to share something with you guys. Are you familiar with 7 Days to Die?
Yeah, one of my brain's not working. One of my followers, Cuddly Bear, he loves that game, dude. Loves it.
Came out as early access December of 2013.
Holy crap.
And it was officially released. It left early access and officially released on July 25th, 2024. Almost
What?
11 years in early access.
Wow.
That's insane.
That is nutty. That's nutty.
You imagine, like, you know what? It's almost like as if the devs were like, you want to finally pull the trigger on this? Yeah, we're done. Publish. Full release.
Yeah, I mean, but that game has a propensity to be very buggy. And sometimes you don't want to pull the trigger because you can hide. I feel like maybe some developers feel like they can hide behind early access. It's still an early access, so don't give us a hard time. That kind of thing. Maybe I'm off base saying that, but why? I mean, we're talking about almost 11 years. It was in early access for over a decade. So
Yeah.
Why? I would love to know why.
If we could get some answers, that'd be awesome.
Well, I mean, it's now in alpha. It's alpha 22. It's version 1.0 now. So, I mean, it's an alpha.
It does make me curious, how many times has a game been forgotten about being in alpha? Like, like they're developing it, yes. But what if they honestly just forgot that it's in like an alpha mode and they're like, wait, we might finally want to release this game after all these years.
Right. Exactly.
I do think there's a point where, like for that game, for instance, where people are just like, all right, it's never coming out of early access. It's just going to stay forever. But it's a good game and I like it, But so much to capitalize on if you time it right for a release. So much to capitalize on. Like just the hype behind it. Like, all right, early access. I told you guys we were getting out of early access within a year. The time's coming up. 1.0 is coming out. Hopefully you guys are excited as we are. Blah, blah, blah. Like, it's just so much good stuff for like a good PR moment.
Agreed.
Especially if like, they kind of tease at what's coming with, like if you had a pretty good early access to where it had a lot in it, that it kept people interested. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, full version's coming and it's going to be like 3 times the maps or, 3 times this or so many more hours of this. It's like, I guess it comes back to, the transparent devs again, just saying what's coming to in the full version.
Yeah.
To a point, because you don't want to, like you said, you don't want to tell everything, but kind of give a teaser, like you don't want to say, well, like Grounded, I'll go back to that one again. The early access was quite a big spot of the yard. And when it came out in the full version, they actually announced it like, we're doubling the size. And I'm like, okay, that's a lot more to explore.
Yeah. It gets people hyped for it, I think the same could be said for over going back to Kickstarters, right? You'd need to be as transparent as ever with that. So back with that, like as Maz is saying, this is a great way to get funding for your game without having a publisher. But like you have to be just as diligent about giving milestone updates to your fan base and almost act as if you were giving those milestone updates to a publisher. Because the same deal with you're signing a contract with a publisher, they're going to be like, okay, we want to see this at this point, this at this point, this at this point. And, at that point, you're going to get your check. You're going to get this money. You're going to get this money. Same thing goes for Kickstarters. Like your community is your publisher at that point.
Yeah, they're your shareholders.
Yeah. And like you said,
they want updates.
Yeah. And like I said, I do. You know what I really like for the little bit of knowledge I do have of Kickstarters is that shiny little thing you get that no one else is going to have, Like say it's like a plushie, right? Or something small from the game where I've actually talked to my wife about this with releasing my game. I go, would you be able to create a plushie of some sort? And she goes, why? I go, just an idea. It's because
Foreshadowing.
yeah, I think it's just such a cool little thing that you get something cool for that game that, especially if you really love that game. Obviously you would if you're going to back it, and you're getting something little cool, and it's kind of like a show off item too to your friends. Like, "Oh yeah, you see how this game blew up? Well, I was there from the beginning," and show
Oh
them
yeah.
whatever you got.
And my son, my middle child, he loves backing games and whatnot. He backed Cult of the Lamb. Got an exclusive flip book for Cult of the Lamb and a vinyl. I mean, that's really cool. And they're not giving that away. They're not selling that anywhere. It was exclusive to the backers on Kickstarter. So you're right. A little bit of an extra, hey, thanks, because without you, this doesn't exist.
Right.
Or a limited edition, first edition game. You get the first. You get a hard copy of it. I mean, sometimes they give hard copies away. Like I said, with the Oculus, everybody got a VR headset when it released, free of charge. With a minimum type of, they have that. If you do X amount, you'll get this as a thank you. If you do X amount of dollars here, a little bit more, you'll get more, and then more and more. So you can have different tiers of investment that get you any type of swag. So like you want to invest in my game, and I'm making it up again. I need $8,000 to finish my game. If you, as an investor, invest $40, you'll get that plushie that you were talking about with your wife and whatnot. If you invest $100, you'll get the plushie and a code to the game when it comes out. That kind of thing. Or vice versa, the game for $40 and the plushie in the game for $100. Something like that. So,
I mean, I'll be honest with you, I had never heard about Kickstarter, honestly. So
really?
And it actually sounds like something I'd rather be interested in helping with, because, I mean, I like the idea.
The second you do it, I'm in. Yeah. Second you do it, I'm in, New.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, New, if you do it, I'm jumping in.
Yeah, because I want a free game.
Oh damn.
So I'm gonna back you with.
I want that plushie.
Yeah, I'm gonna do $200 or $300 so I get a free game and a plushie.
But I think some of that stuff, honestly, I would be happy with just like a poster, like like a first edition poster or something, because I like hanging up posters and stuff.
Yeah, and to solidify what Kronos is talking about here, New, is like the ability to become creative as a way of saying thank you to your backers is endless. You can be super creative. You can be, well, I'll get you a copy of the game. I mean, but the more creative you are, the more buzz you're going to get, and the more exclusive that offer is, right? Are you going to sell that plushie afterwards? No. If that's like specifically designed for your backers, then that's just more hype, more incentives. Hey, look, I got this because I invested in this game.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I was thinking on like the posters, because like each game you help with, if you got a poster from it, like I would hang them all over the walls and stuff, and then like anybody comes over and look and be like, man, what are all these? Be like, hey, this these are all the games that I invested in that took off or something. It's like,
yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
and then, people would see them and then they'd be like, well, I haven't seen that before. Like, oh man, you got to try it. Like it's really fun. It's just.
It's so cool too. Off of what I've heard, like I said, of Kickstarter, a very, very little amount that I know about it, but I've gone on Kickstarter to look at things too, and it's really cool to hear of these success stories and hear from people that are like, yeah, I backed this game before it ever came out, and all the cool little things they get from it. Like even from the developer of Super Meat Boy.
That game used to piss me off so much.
He was on Kickstarter with The Binding of Isaac Rebirth. He put that on a Kickstarter, and obviously very successful. So it's like even it's funny. I think about the tiers, like not known indie devs, little known, kind of known, and then really well known indie devs. Him being a very well known one. I think it helps in that regard too. Like one thing I've heard is that if you are going to go and put your game on Kickstarter, you might want to have a little bit of it's like optional, right? Obviously, but like it helps if you're already known for releasing a game that's good. I mean, it just almost guarantees that you're at least going to, well, I guess not guarantees, but it's very helpful in getting a lot of the backing because people already know what to expect.
Well, yeah, reputation is based off of what you've done, right? You have to create a reputation for yourself. And so if you are over-promising and under-delivering consistently, That'll translate over time. If you are a well-known indie developer, well, guess what? That known indie developer was as well-known as you are as an indie developer at one point, right? You're just getting started. They've kind of had their track record. They're tried and true. Having a good, solid business model, not being over-ambitious with what your goals are and whatnot. Having that business model is clearly stated in your proposal with that video, with the promises of, hey, here's what your backers get, that kind of thing. But you have to stay in communication as well. Just like good devlogs, you have to have good communication with your investors because they want to know what's going on. So we want not constant, but consistent updates. If you put in your proposal, hey, I have updates every 2 weeks or every month, whatever the update or the timetable you set forth is the one that you honor. So if you're like, hey, I'm going to update you guys every four weeks, don't go 6 weeks.
Right.
These people are paying attention to this. They're investing in you because they believe in the project that you're doing. So don't let them down. And there is feedback and everything like that. So the more you overpromise and underdeliver, you always want to underpromise and overdeliver. But the more you underdeliver, the less likely you're going to get backed next time.
Yeah, that's the thing I've been, with explaining how the Kickstarter goes and everything. It's like, I could definitely see someone who's not very familiar with Kickstarter. They try and do a Kickstarter and they put all these things out there and maybe some outlandish like promises. Like, what are you going to do? Like, if you can't make it happen, right? Let's say I decided, I'm going to do a Kickstarter for my game and whoever backs it for this dollar amount, you're going to get a cool little plushie, right? Well, what happens if I can't deliver on my promise? Then I just look like a fool and the people are going to be pissed and possibly ask for a refund if they can. I'm sure they can. And they're also less likely, as you said, to back me on the next game I do because they're like, well, this guy doesn't deliver on his promises, so I'm not going to back him. It's terrible. Right. It's just as bad. Like, it's one of those, I think it's worse. I almost think it's worse if you do that, if you overpromise on Kickstarter, than if you overpromise with a publisher. Because with a publisher, I mean, what are they going to do? Like, cut ties with you and you're done. You don't get any more funding from them. You can still go and release your game and you can still make money off it from the community and people buying it. But if you do that on Kickstarter to the community who's buying the game, that's like a direct blow. It's terrible.
Well, and the thing is, if you have worked with consumers with retail or whatever service or product that anybody buys, a happy client might tell 2 or 3 others about your product or your service. A really pissed off client will tell 10 and they'll tell 10. So news travels fast. And that kind of ties back into what we were talking about. Early developing new devs that are releasing games for the first time. Reviews can be detrimental. And it's the same thing. It's the same ideal when it comes to crowdfunding. Word gets out if you're not holding up your end.
Yeah. Very quickly, that will spread. It's probably why me and Kronos never got into Kickstarter is because, well, I don't know. It's weird. It's like, I almost feel like I've heard about Kickstarter a long time ago, but when I heard about it, I'm like, oh, that sounds sketchy, because like, wait a minute, I could invest into something, but they never deliver and then I lose my money. Like, that's a real thing that can happen. So I'm curious if there's a mix of people out there too that have been into Kickstarter and then had a bad experience and have never gone back, which is terrible. It's one of those, the few ruin it for the many situations.
100%.
I don't know if that's how you feel, Kronos, if you ever, because you said this is the first time hearing about Kickstarter, right?
Yeah. I'm totally new on this subject.
Okay. So it's one of those, like, if that happened to you, if you're like, okay, I'm brand new to this, I'm going to go in, I'm going to fund this game. This looks pretty cool. But then, like, the game says they're going to be releasing in the next year and 3 years go by, like, that was a terrible experience for you. And it makes it really hard to want to do that again and lose your money to a point, if you're not going to get anything out of it.
Yeah, that's kind of what, like, I was thinking. I was like, well, it is a gamble. It's kind of, as Maz was saying, like, if you had different tiers on how to back people, it's like, well, hey, I can throw, I'll throw $20 at your game. It's like if you're expecting me to throw $100 at it, it's like,
Right.
let me at least get 1 or 2 kickstarts in first, and we'll see how it goes.
Have you ever backed a Kickstarter, Mass?
I have. I've done a couple of them. I actually did help with Cult of the Lamb as well.
Oh, nice.
I did with Super Troopers 2 as well, but that wasn't really Kickstarter. That was Indiegogo, which is another one. So you've got Indiegogo, you've got Kickstarter, you've got Greenlight, you've got GoFundMe. The most well known is Kickstarter and GoFundMe. GoFundMe kind of has gotten into more of a other type of crowdfunding, for families who are experiencing loss, people that lose homes, people that experience a death in the family, or anything. And I'm not saying that, you can still go and fund your indie game and stuff like that, but Indiegogo and Kickstarter are more towards projects versus families. I mean, you can crowdfund on any of those platforms, but the most popular ones are those two, obviously. But yeah, I've done a couple of them and gotten some cool things off of it. I didn't have the funding to back Oculus because I think it was like a $300 or $400 at the time investment, which I just was, starting my family, didn't have that kind of extra scratch. But at the same time, that was a wildly successful campaign for them. And now, Facebook has purchased the VR headset and has rebranded it as the Meta Quest. But yeah, I've definitely done some crowdfunding in the past. I think my son's done it more than I have at this point.
I do dude, that's perfect. Definitely for anyone who's listening that isn't used to these either and are kind of like me and Kronos where we haven't heard a lot about it. You just definitely laid out a couple good areas that they can check into. So we got Kickstarter, Indiegogo, GoFundMe. And I do know, as you stated, like GoFundMe, it's funny. It is, I feel, more towards like that kind of like, if someone is going through a hard time or a loss or something like that, that's what my head goes to right away with that one. But I've never heard of Indiegogo, and Kickstarter is fairly fresh. Like I said, I did hear about it a while back, but it didn't intrigue me that much up until lately. And I actually didn't even know it had that much of a big, I guess, following. It's not the best word for it, but a community that go to it. So I think that's really cool, having these different areas for people to go to and possibly come out with some really cool stuff that no one else will be able to get. Well, here's a good question. I told you guys that I had been thinking if I were to do this, I'd probably make a plushie, right? So I like the cool little shiny things that people, if I'm going to get something out of it, right? That no one else is get. Like, Repo came out and I got the little robot dude. No one gets him. Or something stupid like that, right? What would be something that it would intrigue you the most, like a cool reward? I think you kind of already answered this a little bit too, Kronos. You're like, dude, just throw me a poster. I'm cool.
Yeah. I would be okay with posters. I mean, like I said, for like if they did tiers. Now, if it was like, for like you used Repo as an example, if they had done like a Kickstarter and it was like, hey, for $20 you get a poster. If you do $50 you get a poster and you get like a little figure of one of the characters. I'd be like, okay, hey, I'm gonna throw 50 at it because having that little figure. I'm a collector. I love collecting stuff, so I could do. I mean, it just all depends on the type of game and who it is too. Because if it's like one of those things, it's like if you get something in game, like I said, like a cool character, hey, I'd be okay with that too. It really does depend on the wow factor of what you get.
Yeah, you said you have like 2 or 3 Funko Pops, right, Kronos? You said you collect a little bit, right? 2 or 3 of them?
Yeah, 2 or 300 times 2. I mean.
Right. That's a big ass collection you got there, man. And I'm big on collecting as well, And so like as I play games on my stream, it's one thing I kind of got away from because I've kind of been on again, off again, back now and not going anywhere. But as I have been completing games, I've kind of been picking up things or something that is from the game. So I'll give you an example. I got a Voodoo Doll plushie from Phasmophobia. So the voodoo doll that you can find in Phasmophobia. I've got that as a collectible. I've got an air plant. The planter is a cactuar from Final Fantasy.
Jealous.
I've got a notebook that has a black handprint that just says "We Know," which is from the Dark Brotherhood in the Elder Scrolls. I've got Mario things. I've got a plushie of Maz. It's all kinds of really cool things that just keep adding and collecting. So, a plushie or something that is unique, something that is not going to be out there on a retail basis. Even like what Kronos had mentioned, maybe a DLC character in the game that, is only for backers, and you only get that code to add to the game if you're a Kickstarter backer. Those little things, those go a long way. But yeah, collectibles, any type of unique swag is a good selling point for me. Something you can't get anywhere else or ever.
So y'all mentioned Destiny earlier. I don't know if y'all have ever noticed that. They actually have, like, you can complete a certain amount of challenges in the game, and you get access to a limited, like, merch pack that gives you, like, a book, a statue, a shirt. But you can only buy it, by completing those certain tasks, and not everybody can do it. So it's
awesome.
It's kind of like the same thing, it's like it's an incentive to do something more.
And that right there is what sets you apart from other games.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do nowadays. But if you can add value simply by playing my game, well, that's going to spark a lot more engagement with that game. Just like having a good, unique offering is going to spark engagement with your crowdfunding.
Yeah, I'm sure one of our listeners, Call Me Names, she's probably an owner of whatever that is from Destiny. She loves that game.
Chomping at the bit, anything Destiny.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, there's people out there. That's for sure.
That's awesome.
That can also be tied back into, like, what New said, too, though, about over promising and under developing type thing. If you promise, like how we were talking about, like, a DLC thing, and it's like, hey, these people who say, like, how we mentioned what you said, Indiegogo, Kickstarter, and GoFundMe. Like, hey, if you support us on Kickstarter, you get this amount. If you support us on here, you'll get this. Or if and then you end up getting a ton of people supporting you, and then you can't actually get it out there, then that's going to look bad too.
I also mentioned Green Light as a crowdfunding as well. It's actually Green Lit. I misspoke.
Okay.
But what I was going to say was, like, I guess too, on the perks, I guess I just call it perks in a way. It's, you got to not go too exotic. Like, you don't want to offer a $80 statue for everybody that supports you, and then it's like you end up, oh, it's going to take like 3 years to get them all made. It's like, you got to be reasonable with what you do too.
Yeah. It's already stressful enough trying to get your game out there, let alone trying to meet all these things that you put upon yourself that if you don't meet, it's going to be really bad, for the people playing the game. I'd be curious to know. I'd like to ask our listeners if they've ever been a backer, whether on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, whatever your chosen platform. We'd love to hear from you all. Let us know in our Discord or even over on X. Go ahead and send us a message. Just let us know what game you backed and for how much and what you got out of it. Actually, not for how much. Whatever you got out of it, that would be awesome. I don't think I would be very interested in that because of being someone who hasn't done it before. I want to know who got that cool little shiny thing that no one else can get. All right, and with that, we're going to go ahead and take a little break. So when we get back from the ad break, we're going to get into demos, and then we'll get into the final portion with our question of the pod right after this. Hey, Indie Hangout fans. Want to hang out with me, Pneumatics, Maz, and Kronos? Join our Discord community. It's a place to chat about the latest episodes, vote on polls, and even ask us questions that can be featured on the next show. Don't miss out. Go to the show notes below and join the Discord community to hang out with other fans and join the conversation with us. All right, everyone. Welcome back to Indie Hangout. Getting back into it, we're going to jump in. We just talked about Kickstarters and how Kickstarters can help fund your project. And it's very useful for a lot of indie devs. But how do you hook players before they commit? That's where demos come in. Demos.
I was going to say demos, right?
Demos.
Demolition.
Destruction. Yeah, no, demos. Your project's first impressions, right? You guys have played plenty of demos, I'm sure, just like I have.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably
played more demos than I've played actual games.
I was going to say, it's probably the most popular form of playing a game before you play the full thing, because it's probably been, I can remember playing demos back when I probably in high school, grab a demo of a game on Xbox 360 or something. No, was that high school? Probably not, dating myself here. It had to have been after.
Okay. So somehow I'm the youngest one, but I'm probably gonna remember some of the oldest stuff. I remember getting the official Xbox magazine for the original Xbox that had demos on it. It was a disc that you got with the magazine, and it had like 5 or 6 demos on it every month.
Holy crap.
I remember that. Yep, I remember that as well. I'll tell you, I'll do you one better. Now, I'm probably the oldest one. Here's the thing. I remember when the first PlayStation came out at Toys R Us. I was at Toys R Us.
Wow.
And what did they have there? Twisted Metal demo right there that you could play in the store. And if you remember, we're coming off of Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. We're talking going from 16-bit to essentially 32-bit with polygon geometry, right? Hooked. A couple months later, I got the money up with my job, went out, bought a PlayStation, bought Twisted Metal. First game that I bought for the PlayStation. Off that demo.
Wow.
All I thought about for weeks.
Yeah, I can't see. That's what I was thinking back. I'm like, I know Xbox 360. I played demos. I couldn't remember any further back than that. I obviously had to have though. Demos are important, man. And like you said, you played that little bit, and it got you wanting the game.
Yeah, it's a really good tool to get engagement. Same thing, Minecraft 2009, early access, beta, whatever you wanted to call it at the time. And I watched my kids play it. It's like, that's a stupid looking game. I think I said it in one of our podcasts. It's so dumb looking. That game is ugly. It is. I mean, it's gotten better because of, graphics overhauls and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it's still voxels, and that's not the most attractive looking type of game. But the demo was enough to say, hey, I could take this and I can build this. And I've played it now. And okay, I guess you're going to have to buy the full game if you want to continue with what you're doing. It's a great way to hook people.
Hell yeah. It gives player.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just agreed.
I was gonna say demos, man. They give, like you said, they give players a taste of it, so that they can get it, they can get into it, and then it's not something they can't stop thinking about, and they go out and they buy the full game of it. It's perfect for that. Nowadays, it's more seen on Kickstarters and itch.io, where a lot of indie devs post their stuff on there in order to get attention. And by doing that, they also can get a good idea if people are going to want to buy their game in the first place based on that small demo, which is kind of nice too, because you can actually make a demo at any point in development and just kind of throw it out there to get a good idea of how people are feeling about it. But the best thing I've seen lately is Steam Next Fest, where Steam brings all these games from all over the place. People put their demos up, and you could download a bunch of them, play through them, but they're only up on Next Fest for a certain amount of time. And then once the time's up, some developers leave it up longer. Some people take them off right at the end of it. And then you got to wait for the full release, or you could wish list it. So if you're interested in that demo, you're going to go to you're going to wish list it, go to the page, check it out when they might go ahead and release it so that you can enjoy the full version of it. That's awesome. I think that's something I'm definitely going to do when I release my game or get close to release. I'm going to make a demo and put it on Steam Next Fest, because I've seen that be a big factor, even with big indie devs, in getting their game noticed and a lot of people playing it, whether you're in definitely for getting eyeballs on it with YouTubers and streamers. It's a big thing all around, I think. What would you guys think?
One of the biggest things that you need to rely on as a developer, especially an unknown brand new developer, Steam Next Fest is really good, because what do we rely on Steam as a new developer? What's the number one thing, a game coming out? What's the number one thing you rely on? It's wish list. So putting a demo out during that time is a phenomenal way to get your name out there and to get everything in front of the people that you want to wish list. So yeah, I mean, I completely agree that demos are a really solid way of just kind of like, hey, just a taste. This is what's coming. And it goes back to our question that we were talking about at the beginning, and not our question, but our poll. It has to be nice and polished. It should be as bug-free as possible. Now, my knee-jerk reaction to it, you want a bug-free demo or anything like that? That's kind of an unrealistic expectation, but is it? Because what you're doing with a demo, what is a demo, right? It's a sample of what you already have developed. So you could take that and extract it from your game, rip it into a demo, and then focus on polishing and debugging that before you release that. It's a much smaller sample size. So you can have a solid, stable version of your game. I mean, are you with me on that? Do you agree? And so that's a really good way to say, hey, look, this is well done. It's polished. It's good. No bugs. It doesn't break while I'm in the middle of trying to go from point A to point A.5, which is great. So this is it's one of the biggest, I think, draws, because it's not, hey, watch a trailer. Don't listen to me write about it. Take my word for it. Try it out for a few. I think it's a great way of doing it. And even AAA games to this day do it as well. It's like, hey, this is a big game that's coming out. Here's what it's going to feel like.
Yeah. And like you said, they can be short and polished and bug-free because the developer can pick it out from wherever they want. Let's say any game in general. You be literally like in the middle of the game, probably not the best spot, but like maybe a little bit after the beginning of where your game is. Let's say it's an RPG of some sort. You just cut a snippet of it, of 10 minutes of gameplay, and you can take that and make sure it's 100. You can literally 100% bug free that thing, because you can play test it over and over, and it's not going to take a lot of time because it's only 10 minutes long. Or you can shorten it, only 5 minutes long. Whatever you really want to do with it, it doesn't really matter. The fact of the matter is you can polish it and show off exactly what you want to get eyeballs on it, to get people interested.
Yeah, because I mean, it's back to what I said earlier too. It's a good solid demo, but then you also have to a good solid game to go with it. So you want a nice polished. I wouldn't say you want a perfect demo, because you want it to look like it is a demo, not just ripped straight from the game. So it's like if you pull some stuff out and leave some stuff in, and maybe a not perfect completion, but like some little bugs here and there, it's like, okay, hey, this game's still in development, really fun to play, but not perfect just yet.
And see, one of the challenges with that is that if you pick and choose like that with a demo and you put it out there, you can actually get negative feedback, because like if your demo isn't anywhere close to being the final quality of the game you release, it's like people are going like, whoa, this is not anything like the demo I played. What is going on here? So
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that could be a risk of the developer, and really something they have to think about as they make that demo for people to see and play, and make sure that they're not deviating too much.
You don't want to make a demo so well polished that like you can't carry that over to the full game either, because then it's like you said, people are going to be like, well, this isn't what I played. This feels nothing like what I played, like all over the place. This was nice and clean. This is falling apart.
What it should do is set the clear expectations for what the full game will offer. That's all it should. Make sure that the expectations are set, so you're not clickbaiting anyone per se. And also knowing, as a developer, knowing how much is enough. Not showing too much that you spoil too much, or showing too little that you underwhelm them. It's like I said, as you're going through it, like it depends to every demo out there for any game being released. Only the dev is going to really know or have a decent idea, and it could really help by doing this Kickstarters or Indiegogo or stuff like that, and putting a demo up. You kind of get feedback on that before you would go to do something like a Steam Next Fest, so that you don't get blasted. You can actually get blasted a little less, or maybe for people who are more forgiving from Kickstarter, by putting your demo up there and being like, okay, I need to show more, or I need to show less. Like, or people, because there are, my gosh, I can't think of the name of the game. It's like a Parallax. Oh my gosh, it's escaping my mind. There's a game they released a demo for Steam Next Fest, and it was too long. Like, a lot of people are like, well, the game's this part of the game, like the demo you're giving me is too long. And you could replay the demo, and it was one of those, you could keep coming back as a different profession. So like many people got to try out a big majority of the beginning of the game before buying it. And then it actually died off in hype because of it. So you risk that. Like, you showed too much and you gave away too much. And now people are like, oh, okay, well, I kind of, I'm over this. The excitement's gone. The curiosity is gone. I think that's the biggest thing, is like curiosity, keeping people curious, which games like Undertale, and we've already mentioned The Binding of Isaac, those two games were tremendous at doing that with their demos. So Undertale, have you guys played Undertale?
Oh, yeah. Undertale to me almost kind of feels like almost like an instant classic in terms of indie games. It's a extremely well known, successful, really funny, really, really funny I almost said Undertale game. Indie game.
What about you, Kronos?
I have not played it yet, but I will add it to my list.
Adding on to the list.
I just keep adding on, man. You guys are giving me game after game to play.
$7.79 on CD keys.
Boom. Dude, it's funny. Undertale, I have actually not played. Bad on me. I haven't played it.
What?
Yeah. I don't know. I've seen it. I've heard of it. A lot of people from my community have played it, and they were really interested in it. They hyped it up. And I understand. So it was made by that one guy, Toby Fox, and he released his demo in 2013 before the game launched in 2015 on his Kickstarter campaign. And it did really, really well. And it's so funny because it's like the way the game looks is it's like winning factor. It's so weird. And even the way it's coded, oh my gosh. I've looked at videos on like how he coded the game, and he used switch statements to do the conversations for every single thing in the game. I'm like, oh my God, that's insane. That is insane. But it adds to that just weird factor, that winning factor this game has. I think if our listeners haven't played this game before, you should definitely check it out, and you'll understand what I mean when you look at it and you look at even just videos of gameplay. But I think it has its winning factor has a lot to do with maybe it's gameplay, it's story, the way Maz is like, dude, it's so funny. Like there's a lot of different things to it where why it just works, you know. But it had a lot to do with that when he released it as a demo and then up on his Kickstarter to really show it off well, to get people interested, even if it didn't look super polished and, you know, like the perfect artwork. It still works. It's still successful, you know?
It just works.
And then you got a game like The Binding of Isaac Rebirth. And that's another game I haven't played. And that's from one of the game devs that I would follow big time, who made Super Meat Boy, Edmund Charles McMillan. I remember watching him on that movie, the indie movie. Did you guys watch that?
No.
I did not.
Really? Oh, I got a treat for you. Something you guys don't know, and I do know.
Oh, look.
It's
Look,
bound to
look.
happen, man.
Yeah.
He's acting all surprised we ain't seen this movie, but yet he's talking about games that he ain't even played yet.
Never played
I know.
Undertale.
I know. I'm terrible. You know what's funny? Because I'm not a movie buff at all. Like, you talk about like the most popular movie out there, and I'd be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But for some reason, I know about this one. All it is it follows the development process of 3 different devs. One of them, it's so bad of me too, because I'm very bad at remembering names, but he's the developer of Brave, and it was just him making this game. It's like a really beautiful looking game for 2D. And then you have the guy that made Fez. It's another indie game. They follow him. And then they follow the development process of Super Meat Boy with Edmund Charles McMillan and his partner, which I can't remember his name either, but it's really good. You guys should watch it. And any of the listeners listening right now, check it out. Indie game movie, I think it is. I'll have to look it up, but it's worth a watch. It is kind of like a documentary though, so just know that before getting into it.
Hell, I love a good documentary, though. I love to learn. And I find documentaries to be entertaining. And like I was saying to you guys before we started recording, it's like, hey, people love to be entertained and they love to be educated. And they work. Yeah, man, milk and cookies, peanut butter and chocolate, however you want to put it, they go hand in hand very well.
Yeah. They got, oh my gosh. I remember in a part of the movie, like they're releasing their game, Super Meat Boy, Edmund and his partner, and Edmund's like ecstatic about it. He's like, all right, this is working. He's like, dude, can you believe this? Blah, blah, blah. And his buddy is like, I should be happy, but I'm not. And I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know. It's like, but I feel it. Getting a little off topic here, but I feel that like that overwhelming emotion of like, you finally released the game and it was so like traumatic in your brain of all the negatives that would happen, but it's doing good, and your brain's just like, don't believe it. It's not happening. So it's really good. You guys should watch it. It's good.
Definitely check it out. Definitely check that out.
But back on the demo subject, so all stemming from, Edmund releasing The Binding of Isaac Rebirth as a demo, got a lot of attention on his Kickstarter as well. So it seems like Kickstarter is a good place to throw your demo at for the community to get a good taste of what you got going,
If you're looking for some crowdfunding and you're looking to, you're a little bit strapped for cash, need a little bit of an extra push, again, without selling your soul, it's a good place to look at.
All right. On that note, I think we've talked everyone's ears off about demos, Kickstarters, early access. And I mean, at the end of the day, conclusion here, they're all big pieces of the indie puzzle, right? They all fit into one another. And as long as you do them right, as long as the indie dev does them right, they're most likely going to have a very successful launch. So with that, let's get into our next section, question of the pod. All right. So we went ahead and put a question of the pod over in Discord, and we asked everyone, what happens when early access fails to deliver on initial promises? Can a game recover from a long, troubled development? So I'll go ahead and read off some of the answers over on Discord, and then we'll get into what we think. All right, so over on Discord, we have Yemi the Ferret. He says, early access is what it is, getting to play an early build of the game while the developer works on it. I think a failure can only truly come when a version 1.0 comes out and it still has issues from early access period. Great development team can overcome a troubled development. What helps the most is a strong community supporting the early access period and helping in what ways they can with finding bugs and giving opinions on the game. Above all else, though, the developer cannot be too thick-skulled to accept advice from the community.
Open and honest communication is a two-way street. I love this answer. Sidebar, guys, we got to get this guy on our show at some point. He knows his stuff for sure. Yemi's a good dude.
Yeah.
It goes back to what we were talking about, that open and honest communication. And Nilet Inc. says as well, sometimes if the developer is willing to work at it, that kind of goes hand in hand with what Yemi says at the end. The developer cannot be too thick-skulled to accept advice from the community. And if the developer is willing to work at it, which is what Nilet Inc. was saying, then you have a chance, especially if you're not going to be thick-skulled. I think that's a great answer.
Yeah, absolutely, dude.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go for it, dude.
I was just to say, I mean, I think a game can recover. I agree with him. It's got to be a whole. It's got to come together as a whole, though. You can't have a developer who's just like, no, my game's perfect. You can't have people who are like also like, oh, this game's trash in early access, because it's like, we're working on it together. You gotta give feedback. You gotta accept feedback. It's like Maz said, it's a two-way street.
It really is. Accountability is a two-way street. And the one thing that you got to be careful of with what Yemi was answering as well is it goes back to those people that don't really truly understand what early access means, because that can hurt things. But I'll give you a really big example, a massive example, and we've talked about it already. It's No Man's Sky.
I knew it.
Yeah.
I was going to say that. I was literally going to answer and say, well, hey, Maz has gave plenty of examples, and No Man's Sky is one of them.
100%. I mean, that came out and had absolutely terrible backlash. We talked about it when we were talking about crowdfunding and with Kickstarter. Don't make promises you can't keep.
Yeah, it's like, you imagine if No Man's Sky developers were just like, you know what? No, you guys are all wrong. Our game is great. You're going to learn to love it. Dude, imagine the game would have dropped off.
Right. Right. That's the thing, is that there's no way whatsoever that they could ever back that up. I mean, some of the things, if you look at some of the overviews, it was given, they had unfulfilled promises like we talked about. Don't overpromise and underdeliver. It gave the perception of a rushed, incomplete game. That's what it was. It was criticized for lacking key features that they were boasting was going to be there in the pre-launch. It's like, oh, this is going to be here. You're going to see this, and this. And it wasn't even there. So it was like, dude, what happened? And you could go into, so you guys have played it, and you fly into these space stations, and it's got people in there. Well, it's got aliens in there, and things that you can buy, and different types of activities, and portals, and all that stuff. It was an empty room that didn't even have rendered graphics at that point. It was just that blurry crap that you see from playing a game that is just way above and beyond your hardware's capabilities. That's how bad it was. It was clunky. It was ugly. It was empty. And it's a raging success. So the question is, what happens when early access fails to deliver on initial promises? Well, guess what? You get your ass to work. And that's exactly what Hello Games did with No Man's Sky. I think that they did a phenomenal job changing the narrative, the perception. They've slowed down. And that's one thing that I am constantly saying to my staff when I work, at my job is we do better when we slow down. We don't have to rush. There's such a thing as being too fast. There's such a thing as, efficiency. There's a difference between being speedy and being efficient. And when we are working fast and well, that's because we're being efficient. That means we've slowed down and we're thinking. And so once they decided to say, hey, you know what? We're going to, instead of, we could push back on this backlash. What we're going to do is we're going to slow down. We're going to evaluate what we did wrong in the post-mortem, right? Because you're always going to do a post-mortem after your initial release, right? Or your early access release.
Right.
And in that post-mortem, it's like, okay, this is the feedback that we're getting. This is where we went wrong. Now, let's get to work. And they've done that. And they've been doing it for years. And that game is phenomenal. You can look at CD Projekt Red as well with Cyberpunk. Not necessarily an indie game, but was in development for years and years and years and years and years. But the difference this time was they pushed that game out rushed because it kept getting delayed. There was the pressure to move it, and they got the crap suit out of them for it because it was a rushed product. I mean, it was borderline unplayable when it first came out. Graphical anomalies, lots of artifacts that were showing up that, obviously you don't want artifacts, game breaking glitches, but they've come a long way as well. The ones that can accept the criticism. And I'm the same way. I love it when people, we do this with our podcast. What did you guys think of the podcast? What could be better, right? We want to hear that. But the thing is, when we get criticism, you could tell me that anything that I do is crap, but be prepared to tell me why. And so if we're getting the right type of feedback for ourselves, that's how we improve, right? And these developers are no different. So if they take the feedback, now obviously you're going to have a lot of anger and a lot of backlash that's going to be in different tones and whatnot. But I believe that if the underlying message is there, the overall message rather is there, you can fix anything. And if you are willing to put the work in, to Nyla Inc.'s point, it can be turned around. And these are two examples, CD Projekt Red with Cyberpunk and Hello Games with No Man's Sky. To Yemi's point, are prime examples of companies or developers that are not too thick-headed or too thick-skulled, to use his words, to accept the advice from the community.
Yeah, love it, dude.
30
that
minutes
was great.
later. Sorry.
No, that was great.
Hey, you're
dude.
good. Hey, you pretty much summed up what I was going to say on that one, too.
Yeah, man. I mean, everything Maz just said, because it would really take a lot if you have a good game and you had a trouble development and you release it and you get a bunch of backlash, like, unless you really don't care. I don't know. I feel a lot of indie devs, yeah, it's their baby, and they are kind of partial to being like, no, you don't know, you just don't understand my game. But in reality, they're looking at it like, no, these people are right. Like, I need to fix this. So I feel it's be really hard to fail unless you just completely say, no, I'm not going to do that, Because
my game's good enough.
Yeah, I just don't see that happening. I mean, I'm sure it does. But any game can have a great turnaround if enough work is put into it.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Battlefield 2042.
Oops. Oh.
Perfect examples right there.
Your game's
Yeah, man.
broken. Oh, sorry about that. I'm going to introduce something called the Atom Store. Hope you guys enjoy. Bye.
But my stuff's still not working. Yeah, sure. Do you like that skin? Yeah, it looks great.
we have a monthly membership that you can apply to now. Thanks. Bye.
I will say, I like what they done with their Battlefield 2042 is they tried to fix the game. They got it as best they could. And they said, you know what, guys, we're done. We're developing Battlefield 6.
Yeah, we did what we could. We're going to call this a loss. Sometimes
they literally scrapped the idea pretty much. They were just like, okay, hey, we're moving on. Like, this not working. We're going on to a whole new game.
And to be fair about 76, they have made a lot of content updates. Yeah, one thing that they started with was just, I don't like the fact that they didn't have NPCs in there. That kind of took away from the flair, but they've made corrections, and that's an example of listening to feedback. People wanted that. So when you had the Wastelanders pack, the Wastelanders update a couple years ago, that brought that kind of brought things back up to snuff. There's still a lot of opportunity, but I think that the nice thing is that Microsoft owns it and they're investing in it and whatnot. I'd love to see 76 have the same type of development team that Elder Scrolls Online has. Another couple examples, ESO, when it first came out, was abysmal. Final Fantasy 14, we've talked about that before as well. That's why the original, like the first iteration of it, just they scrapped it. They got rid of it. And they came out with Final Fantasy 14, A Realm Reborn. That's what it's called. And that is, it's paying homage to where we made a mistake and we started over. So that's why it's called A Realm Reborn. They literally redid it. And it's been great since then.
Cool. Well, I think that pretty much covers it. Wouldn't you guys say?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I think that wraps it up. So, everyone who's listening, be sure, if you would like to be a part of the conversation, join our Discord. We would love to see you over there. You could answer the polls. You could answer the question of the pod with us, as we just went over. Or you could just talk with us. Give us some ideas of what you want to hear next, because we'd love to discuss them in the next one.
I want to know who our first mailbag sender is going to be in the Discord.
Yeah.
I want to know, is it you? How about you?
Is it you? That would be awesome.
Or is it you?
Or is it going to be you?
Yes. If you guys would like to have your questions answered, throw them. It could be whatever. It could be, I think I've stated this before. Why do you guys not like Rocket League? It is such a great game. Why would you not want to drive cars and hit soccer balls? It's the greatest, okay? Just ask and we'll go over it.
Up here?
Change
and then
our
be prepared
minds.
for dismantling. Yes.
Change our minds. We dare you. Anyways, guys, thank you for listening. It's been awesome. This has been the Indie Hangout Podcast, and we'll look forward to having you guys listen to us again next Thursday, bright and early. We'll see you guys then. Bye.
That's a wrap.
See you later.